Yesterday, Colin and I were down in the far southeastern corner of Oregon, not far from both Idaho and Nevada, camping and exploring with some friends. 2 days ago, we checked out the Alvord Desert and camped against the dramatic backdrop of Steens Mountain. Now, everyone is going their separate ways, headed home or off to other adventures. After 2 days under the desert sun, Colin and I have decided to veer north and get back under some trees in Malheur National Forest. This was not our original plan for today, so we have no routes plotted, no research prepared, and, having been unable to find decent Wi-Fi when we passed through the town of Burns, we were only able to get some partial basic maps downloaded into Gaia GPS. So we're just kind of improvising as we go, and it's actually kind of nice, just randomly exploring without any real plan. If we see a road that looks inviting, we take it. If we see something in the distance that looks intriguing, we try to find roads that will get us there. It seems like the topography is made up of large, open highlands covered with grasses and sagebrush, carved apart by numerous chasms and canyons which are increasingly forested as you drop down into them, punctuated by cliffs of exposed rock. It's a really interesting mix of ecosystems that's not quite like anything I've ever seen before, varying quickly from desert-like expanses to heavily treed forest areas and back again as we follow the dramatic rise and fall of the terrain. We've stopped to hike across one of the peninsulas of high ground, this one almost prairie-like with grasses and wildflowers, yet punctuated by exposed rock and sagebrush reminiscent of the desert we left behind earlier. To either side of us extend narrow gorges lined with trees and rocky outcroppings. We've actually come quite a long ways today from the southeast corner of the state, and we need to start thinking of finding somewhere to make camp. On the map, we've spotted a road that heads down towards a creek, which... So yeah, I didn't bring the chainsaw along on this trip because we weren't planning to be in any forested areas. Well, here's a nice little campsite we found, right on the edge of a nice clearing, but protected in some trees. Already a fire ring. But this hawk just won't stop screaming at us. At first, the cry of the hawk lends a certain charming ambiance, like our own personal soundtrack to a real-life Western film. But eventually, the relentless, non-stop screeching, every 7 seconds like clockwork, starts to grate on our nerves. The hawk, clearly disturbed by our presence, moves from tree to screech at us from every direction in a tireless attempt to intimidate us into leaving. As it turns out, we've set up our camp right next to her nest. It's right there. It's within sight of the car. So there's the campsite, which we really like. There's the nest. Campsite, nest. Campsite, nest. Unhappy hawk. So I think we're going to have to move. The hawk's intimidation tactics prove fruitful. This isn't going to be the quiet, relaxing nature experience we had in mind for tonight, with this screaming hawk harassing us. Fortunately, we found a similar campsite, maybe 50 meters up the road, and well out of sight of the hawk's nest. Alright, this is fine. We've still got a view of our meadow, and we've even got a fun little patio of exposed bedrock to set our chairs on. I'm beyond the refrigeration limits of my crappy little cooler, so we're down to a meal of canned food, but no one's complaining. Stagg chili has long been a staple of our camping trips, as it's so easy to prepare, requires no refrigeration, and always provides a hot, tasty, satisfying meal. The sun is up, but my sun is not up. That's okay, it is on the early side. Rather than make any noise in camp, I'm gonna hike around a bit and explore the area so he can sleep a little longer without being disturbed. The forest here is a mix of ponderosa and other pine varieties. A closer look at the ground reveals a rainbow of tiny wildflowers. Scattered among the pines stands the occasional juniper, unmistakable with its pungent scent and hard blue berries littering the ground. Aside from our friendly neighborhood hawk, we haven't seen much wildlife, so this sleek, darkling beetle will have to do. Alright, I think Colin is awake. Time to make some breakfast. We've packed up and are ready to work our way back out towards the highway. We've wandered pretty far up into Malheur National Forest, so we still have a bit of a trek this morning before we hit pavement. Wow. It's rare we encounter water crossings in Oregon, but we've certainly stumbled on quite a few lately, and this one is by far the widest I've ever faced. It looks pretty shallow and tame, but beyond about 20 feet it's impossible to see what's below the surface. There could be a large rock, a submerged log, a muddy hole. Best practice with any unknown water crossing is to walk it first. That will give you the opportunity to spot any unpleasant surprises lurking underwater, gauge the depth, and feel the current. Even the super experienced off-roaders of Australia driving big snorkeled 4x4s say, if you can't walk it, you shouldn't drive it. This one doesn't look too deep, and there's clearly no current to speak of, but out here on my own, I simply can't take any chances. Ultimately, a few minutes of getting my feet wet are worth it to be sure I'm not getting myself into trouble here. This looks to be about 18 inches at its deepest, and I'm not seeing any underwater hazards, so I feel pretty good about proceeding here. Yeah, no problem at all, and we're on our way. This road follows the river, so I'm looking forward to seeing what kinds of scenery we might come across. First a down tree yesterday, and now a locked gate today. Looks like more backtracking for us. Pinned by private land on one side and a hillside with no roads on the other, we have no choice but to recross the river. The morning has already gone by, and we have a long drive back to Eugene. We found a paved route leading down to Highway 20, so it's time to air up and head home.